Good afternoon and welcome to the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services March 3rd, right, meeting. Could we have roll call, please, Iris?
Sure. Commissioners Bennett?
Here.
Khan?
Here.
Patrick?
Here.
Rotvogel?
Here.
President Sharkey?
Here.
The agenda for the March 3rd, 2010 meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall and on the City of Glendale's website on Thursday, February 25th, 2010 at 1 p.m. Item 2, Introductions and Presentations. 2A, Annual Report on the Doctor's House by the Glendale Historical Society.
Good afternoon, distinguished commissioners. My name is Sonia Montejano, and I'll be presenting the 2009 Doctor's House Annual Report. I'd like to introduce myself to you. My name is Sonia Montejano. I've been involved with the Glendale Historical Society for 2 years. In August, I was appointed liaison, and in February of this year, I was appointed director of the Doctor's House Museum. I'd like to point out to you, do we have our photos up?
Sonia, we know who you are, but we're not sure who that woman is.
Yeah, could you please introduce
Your audiovisual support.
your technical support?
And my technical support is Elaine Wilkerson, a terrific mentor to me. Up on the screen, you will see, I want to introduce you to Maria Romo Bowen. She has become an instrumental volunteer at the Doctor's House, just accepted the position of docent coordinator, and that's a tremendous help for the museum. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about myself. I am a retired deputy sheriff, and along with that background, I have a security conscious disposition, and so I'd like to tell you that one of the first things I did upon taking the responsibilities of the museum, I reviewed the inventory, compared it to the actual items in the museum, and I'm happy to report to you that things appear to be in good order. I also implemented a sign-in log where all city employees and volunteers entering the home fill out a sign-in log, which is compared to the security activity report, and I check that weekly to ensure that people who have keys are signing in, and that creates a little bit more accountability. We've also installed locks in all of the closets, securing the extensive vintage clothing collection, where several items in past years have been missing. The Historical Society is looking into the installation of security cameras to further protect the inventory inside the museum. The former curator for 18 years, Isabel Mayer, has remained active with the museum. She has been my mentor. She remains active with conducting school tours and special tours of the museum. As you know, the museum is open every Sunday from 2 to 4. Last year, we had 1,585 visitors to the museum. That's up 500 from the previous year. Throughout the year, we had several exhibits. Starting in the early part of the year, there was an exhibit honoring the Zerdich family that occupied the home for 40 years. Without updating it, which allowed for the Historical Society volunteers to restore the museum much more easily. Surviving members of the family had a family reunion at the house, and they were very honored by the exhibit and the tribute to their family. We also make efforts to try to showcase local history, and in March we had an exhibit honoring the schools in Glendale, and it exhibited historical photos noting student life in Glendale at the turn of the century and up to the mid-part of the century. We had a special exhibit honoring the Glendale Police Department. And through the fall, we had the Glendale Historical Society 30-year anniversary exhibit, which noted the many successes and failures of the Historical Society, as not all endeavors end with success. We had several events at the museum. In the early part of the year, in January and February, we hold the annual Candlelight Valentine Dinner Raffle. This is a picture noting the winners of the 2009, as all Maria Maria Roma Bowen, who I mentioned earlier. She's a second-time winner. She also won in 2006. And this really drew her into the House. And like I mentioned, she is an active docent and our most recent docent coordinator. In August, for the first time, we had, in conjunction with the Parks Department, a viewing an outdoor movie showcase, Crime Wave, and that was an opportunity to showcase the police exhibit. In September, the Glendale Historical Society held its annual meeting at the gazebo, and longtime volunteers were presented with awards in recognition of their longtime service. And long time, I mean 30 years. We have Mary Franson there photographed, Judy Cabrera, and Isabel Mayer for their almost lifetime service award. A special award was also presented to Commissioner George Chapjian for his leadership and support of the Doctor's House, Cedar Park, and the Adams Square Mini Park. In December, the House was open for its annual candlelight tours for 2 evenings. The candlelight tours have clearly become one of Glendale's holiday traditions. We have many repeated visitors to the museum during this time. This year, the house was decorated by Gerard Marin, a set and interior designer. We had the Crescenta Valley Choir perform Christmas carols at the gazebo. And the house museum was photographed by Victorian Home Magazine. We anticipate that the house will be featured in this year's December issue. It has been my pleasure to work with the Parks Department, Gary Morello, and Raymond Wong. We have worked closely to improve signage, beautification of the grounds, the maintenance of the alarm system, the installation of locks, and even so far as improvements to the LC Brand Cemetery. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to the year ahead as director of the Doctor's House Museum.
Great.
And I'll answer any questions if you should have any at this time.
No questions?
Thank you.
I love your idea of the security. We always think afterwards.
Yes.
Like what we should have. So great. Yeah, I've been to a number of events there. It's a wonderful place, especially with the kids. Elaine
Especially.
had me on one of those
We're
tours.
seeing an increase in the number of visitors.
Great.
And thank you for coming to the school tour last year. We really
That was fun. That was a lot of fun. So
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you.
What is next, please?
Item 2, Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation.
Sorry, Teresa Alexandrian, who's one of our liaisons to the Parks and Open Space Foundation.
Good afternoon, Chair Sharkey, members of the Commission. My name is Teresa Alexanian, Administrative Analyst for the Community Services and Parks Department. I'm here today to provide you an update on the newly formed Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation. The nonprofit organization was formed by a group of dedicated community Glendale residents who find that parks and recreational programs are very important to our community. The board consists of Dottie Sharkey, our current chair for the commission, who's also the president for the foundation, Tony Tartaglia, a former parks commissioner who's also on the GCC Board of Trustees, he's the secretary, Carl Raggio, former city mayor and councilman, Rick Dinger, president of Crescenta Valley Insurance, Stephanie Landrigan, landscape architect program director at UCLA Extension, John Sad, a CPA, who's also the foundation treasurer, Mark Sturdivant, the senior administrative analyst for the Community Services and Parks Department, and George Chopchin, who's an ex officio board member. The foundation received approval from the IRS for its 501c3 nonprofit status in December of 2009. And it's basically a local nonprofit organization who will contribute funds towards parks and recreational programs. In these hard budget times, I think it's important to have an outside organization that could contribute to the parks and programs. The foundation mission is to nurture friendly, safe, clean, and well-maintained parks and open spaces that enrich the entire community by inspiring recreation, education, and an enhanced quality of life. The foundation, it was important to the board to involve the community in any and every way. And in just forming the foundation, the board decided to work with GCC students, a local art class, where I think it's called Identity and Logo Development, where the class can assist the foundation in creating a logo. This will provide a great opportunity for the students to have hands-on experience working with an organization, and the top 5 or 10 students will be elected by the professor to present to the board. So this is one of the ways that the board is giving back to the community in just its formation. The foundation has created a website. It's still a work in progress, but you can check it out at www.glendaleparksfoundation.org, and the board can be reached at glendaleparksfoundation@gmail.com. That's the email where the board can be reached for any questions. The first project that the board has taken on is a partnership with Art from the Ashes, and that is an art exhibition that will be coming to Glendale. The Art from the Ashes Foundation was founded by Glendale resident and California native Joy Fuhrer in 2007, and it's a group of independent artists and volunteers who create art from materials collected from fire site locations. This was a great opportunity given the station fire at our Duke-Magian Wilderness Park. Art from the Ashes has done 2 similar exhibitions in Pasadena at the Cisco Home Furniture Company, and also in Santa Barbara at the Santa Barbara Botanic Gardens when the Just to See the Fire burned 60 acres of the garden. Basically, volunteer artists collect materials, or Art from the Ashes collects materials from the fire sites, and volunteer artists create art pieces that can be shown at the exhibit and are sold for profit. This project was a great opportunity for the foundation to take on, not just as an introduction to the foundation, introducing it to the community, but also a way of giving back to the community. The profits that will come from, hopefully, from the exhibition will be contributed back to the park in a way of rehabilitation for the park, whether it's reseeding, replanting, or the trails maintenance. Another great benefit for this will be engaging the community and providing a sense of healing for those that were affected by the fire. So it's a great opportunity to show, I guess, not to say a good side of the fire, but something good that can come out of the fire. So materials that were found at the site have been collected, and artists will be picking materials where they can create art pieces to exhibit and share with the community. This is a great art event that will be coming to our community as well. We know that arts is very important in Glendale, and everybody has been ruling for it. So this is another great opportunity. It's also an opportunity to promote local artists who will be volunteering their time. So a lot of them will be Glendale residents, so it will be a great opportunity to introduce them and give them credit for the great work that they do. And also, last but not least, of course, it will be a great way of introducing the foundation, since they've been quietly working away very hard to put this foundation together to be able to give back to the community. I hope this is a quick summary of what the foundation is about and what they've been up to now. I'm here for any questions, and I'm sure Chair Sharkey and Mark Sturtevant would be more than happy to help me answer any questions that you may have.
You did a beautiful job. Just a beautiful job.
Thank you.
But Rodney has a question.
No.
Thank you.
I'll show that.
Really, a couple questions. First of all, is this, when you talk about the arts, there's an arts commission as well. Is that being folded into this, or is this completely separate than that?
Well, the foundation is separate. It's a separate nonprofit organization, so the event will go to the Arts Commission when we have a date and a location. That has not been determined yet. So Art from the Ashes and the Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation is working on finding a site and setting a date. So once it's set, of course, the event will be announced, but it's not in, we're not working with the Arts and Culture Commission. It's separate.
Okay, does that fall under Parks, the Arts and Culture Commission, or is that a different
Well,
department?
it does fall under our department.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The second thing is this Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation, is that something where you guys are going to go out and seek grants? I mean, I remember we talked about it
We
a
can
little
do
while
that.
ago. Is that why it's a 501c3
Very
or whatever
helpful,
it is?
very helpful, because there's a lot of grants that the city could not apply for, but a nonprofit can.
I see.
So that'll be very helpful. Here's just a few of what was done in Santa Barbara.
There are many foundations, private foundations, that will give to nonprofits but not give to cities. So this will help.
Okay, great.
The foundation will be raising funds through donations, membership, so it'll operate as a nonprofit, so it could apply for grants, but it also will also be taking membership and donations, and we'll be doing fundraising separately. So.
Right. Okay. I think that's great, especially going after the grants. It makes a lot of sense. The first part of it, though, as it relates to the Arts Commission, it seems like we would kind of want to coordinate between that type of an activity and what we're doing and what they're doing. I don't know what their agenda is. I don't know what they're looking at doing. I don't know if we're working together or if
Well,
not.
I must say, we're not even a year old yet, so we didn't even get our 501c until the end of December.
Well, and the
We were-
foundation is totally separate
Yeah.
from even this commission. So the foundation has technically nothing to do with the commission, or except that Dottie is on it.
And also, if I may add, Mark and I did talk about this. The staff person is very, very busy with a lot of work that she's doing right now with the commission, and the resources are limited in terms of her hours. So we felt it was best for them to continue to pursue this without
Bringing it to them.
Right.
Okay.
Just because she has so many things on her plate right now.
Sure. Thank you.
Are there any other 501c3s is Glendale Beautiful a 501c3 also? So we have other nonprofits that are
Yes.
attached to the department, or
Yes.
at least support the department?
Glendale Beautiful is a 501c3, yeah. And there's, I think, what's the other one that Sam works with? Clean and Beautiful Glendale, which is a nonprofit that works with the Neighborhood Services section as well.
And so many of these groups are together,
And
like the
Friends of the Library.
Historical Society, Friends of the Library, and it'll all, but we're just in the early stages, and
They also
I have
have
to tell
GYA.
you, it's moving so fast.
Wow.
Anybody who finds out about it is just so excited.
And Jess is reminding us, GYA is a nonprofit as well that works
Oh,
with the city.
right.
Big one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I just want to say that I've had an opportunity to look at the webpage for this Art from the Ashes, and here's the brochure that Dottie has, and it's absolutely fabulous. So it's going to be I think it's going to be really exciting. I'm very excited about it.
Will the Art from the Ashes display be like a one-day, or is it something that maybe we would put up at Brand Library and have it be ongoing?
I think we're hoping to have a 3 to 4 week exhibition, so it should be up 3 weeks to a month. So we're hoping to have it up for a while, and of course the pieces will be sold at the end. So
We'll have a kickoff reception and then have everything displayed.
And I think they're hoping to do it in downtown area.
Hopefully, yes. We've looked at some sites, and we have 3 sites we saw, and we're just waiting and hoping that one of them will work out. So it's all going really well. So thank you.
Thank you.
You did great.
Great report.
What is next, please, Iris?
Item 3, Commission Staff Comments.
Commissioner Rothfogel.
Just wanted to say that went to the Arbor Day. We both were at the Arbor Day celebration yesterday. It was it was a fabulous event. The kids that were there that read their poems, it was inspiring that these third graders that did such a great job, and a lot of trees that were given to the city, and once again we're a tree city, and that was fabulous. The other thing that I went to in the last month was I took my niece and nephew to the snow day, and it was a great time. It was really a lot of fun. Somewhere around, I don't know if it's surfaced yet, I hope not, there's a picture of me taking my 1-year-old nephew down one of the slides. but it was a great event, a lot of fun, and looking forward to it next year and encouraging everyone to go.
Anyone else?
Good job. Nope.
If not, I have a couple staff comments. One is I think Stephanie's going to be coming up here to talk about green buildings and green concepts. But while she's doing that, I know she's going to be asking for commission participation if you'd like. I know Rodney may be serving as one, but we can have another person if any of you want to serve on this task force that she's going to be talking about. Two is there's going to be a change of location for the April and May commission meetings because of the work that's going to be going on here in the chambers. I think the city council is also going to be moving, so we'll have it in the MSB building, which is the new one, the one that they just seismically retrofitted. And I think it should be finished by the end of May, apparently, so by June we should be back in here, hopefully. Then third, speaking of Winter Wonderland, I have to tell you, we're going to be in the middle of budgets at this point, and the department itself is looking for 3 to 5% cuts in the department. And so last year we took 11 to 12% cut, and this year we're looking at another 3 to 5% cuts. So, Winter Wonderland, those type of things may be in danger at this point. So just we'll keep you abreast of what's going on, and send you some notes out on what we're doing.
But eventually that would be the kind of thing that maybe the foundation
Could be.
pick up
Could be.
and things like that.
If it gets eliminated. I'm not saying it will, but we're looking at, hiring freezes, how to do things differently, using the enterprise fund more. We have an enterprise fund that we can use a little bit more so that we continue as much as we can to provide those same level of services to the residents here.
I just wanted to add something about the Glendale Parks Foundation. Teresa maybe she's not on the board, but she really is. I don't know what we do without her. She's tremendous support, has wonderful ideas, and she keeps us in line. So anyway.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
Yeah,
and
she
I know
is.
Mark is as well. And
Of course, Mark, but we mentioned Mark.
We have a great team. I mean, the administrators
Yeah.
here and the staff.
But
we've
Mark
got
was included, and her name was not. And I just wanted to make sure that. Okay, Iris, you have
Yes,
something.
President Sharkey, members of the Commission, I also have a very important announcement.
Okay.
This is regarding the 2010 census. As you hopefully already know, this is the year for the census. Every 10 years, the United States counts every person in the United States. Whether they're a citizen or not, every person counts, and that's certainly the case here in Glendale. And I'm currently serving on the City of Glendale's Complete Count Committee, which was formed to promote the census. And we've been working very hard to get the message out. So I just want to remind everyone that the census is coming, that your 2010 census questionnaire should arrive at your home in mid-March, around March 15th, that it's important. Glendale gets money for every person that gets counted in the census, and that's money that could help pay for parks, community services programs for children, seniors, and low-income families, libraries, public transportation, police, and fire. And so the only way to make sure that we get our fair share is for everyone who lives here in Glendale to be counted. It's only 10 questions. It's a very short form, unlike previous census years. And it should only take about 10 minutes. The information you provide is strictly confidential, and we ask that you please mail it back by April 1st. And there's going to be plenty of questionnaire assistance centers throughout the city if anybody doesn't receive a form or has any questions about filling out the form. And then I also lastly wanted to announce that the city is going to be having a citywide census outreach event on March 20th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. We are looking for volunteers to hand out flyers and take posters to different businesses. And if anybody is interested in volunteering, they can call Eliza Zanarian at 818-937-8005. And we encourage everyone to visit us at glendalecensus.org. We're also on Facebook at Glendale Counts 2010. Thank you.
Thank you, Iris. What is next?
Item 4 is oral communications.
We don't have any oral communications.
Item 5A, approval of the minutes of the Commission regular meeting held on February 3rd, 2010.
Has everyone had a chance to review? Okay. Motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you.
Commissioners Bennett,
Yes.
Hahn,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Rottfogel,
Aye.
and President Sharkey.
Yes.
Item 6A1, under reports for information only, City of Glendale's green building policy.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for having me today. I'm Stephanie Reich, a senior urban designer with the Planning Department. I'm also an architect, and I help with the interdepartmental green building team. We have a staff that has developed a couple of different reports to the City Council, who is interested in developing a comprehensive green building policy for the city. On July 1st, 2008, we first went to the Council with an overall green building report, and somewhat to our surprise, they voted to include all all public buildings and public-private partnerships under a silver LEED umbrella. And that policy was in place until recently, when they wanted to reconsider that public policy within the private policy that they asked us to reconsider on January 26th, when we took another more detailed report that I believe was in your packet for today's meeting, that fleshes out some of the different options for green building, which also would include park projects, as we will consider it. And so that green building policy has a number of policy issues associated with it. What types of projects might be included, how that would be administered, etc. So on January 26th, the Council asked us to develop a green building task force. That Director Champion has invited at least one or maybe two of you to participate in. That task force will likely meet about 3 times. We're still working out the schedule. Since the state of California is simultaneously developing its own green building policy, that will be published in July of 2010. So our Green Building Task Force meetings will be timed to correspond with that information, that adoption. So likely the last meeting will be sometime in July, with other meetings in May and June. We do think this will be a very hard working group that will meet, as I mentioned, likely only 3 times to flesh out some of the issues that were raised in that council report on January 26th. So then, more recently, in February, at a joint meeting of the GRA, the Housing Authority, and the council, it was decided that the policy that was adopted in 2008 would then be folded into the overall comprehensive consideration of a green building policy. So that's been the activity to date. There's a fair amount of information highlighted in the reports that were in your packet, and I've come to be available essentially to answer any questions that you might have about that information.
Great. Everybody looks at Rodney.
Go ahead and ask someone else first.
Do you have any?
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for being here. I had mentioned to George a while ago not a while ago, but a few months ago, to have this type of a presentation to us, because we do see a number of projects, and it's not only what we're seeing right now in our city, I think we're seeing it throughout the state. And I think it's important that we have some dialogue. One of the things that I was looking at as I was reading the report was just trying to get a sense of, and you answered in your presentation, when this California Green Building Code would be adopted, and that was in July of this year, it looks like.
There is a timeline that's published that I didn't include as part of the packet. As far as I recall from the timeline, there has been a draft that's been adopted by the State Building Commission, I believe, the Building Code Commission. And so then there's a timeline for adoption that has, I believe, a July date for publication. So we already have a draft that's substantially what we'll likely see in the publication. You never know how wording changes and so forth, but as we move forward, our interdepartmental team obviously can flesh out what's in that report, and prior to meeting with the task force, have some information about how that might compare to the other systems that were highlighted.
And I think that'd be beneficial. One of the things I always, and I think it's true for any process that's new that gets started, is trying to get a handle on it, because it's very fluid. I saw in this attachment that, for instance, for a LEED certification of a certain, and I'll pick LEED Gold, and it says for that it could be anywhere from a 0.3% increase for the cost all the way to a 5% increase. And when you look at projects of a larger scale, like a $15 or $20 million project, that could mean anywhere from a few $1,000s to several $100,000. And that's a huge swing to not really be able to kind of budget for, structure for, and different things like that. So I'm hoping as we go through this process, we're able to kind of look at it and say, okay, this is realistically about what the costs we're looking at doing, because I think not being able to be somewhere in the ballpark is a huge problem for people that are looking to develop.
That's a very interesting question, and something that is, as the report notes and you've highlighted, is pretty hard to pin down based on the available research. And so what we've tried to do is reach out and see what available data there is. Because green building is such a new field, and LEED, I think, has been highlighted. I think you were talking primarily about the numbers associated with the LEED certification system, which is one of many systems out there, but it's one that developers are familiar with now, more familiar than some of the other systems in new construction, because it's a national system, and because several municipalities in our area, like Long Beach, Los Angeles, Pasadena, have already adopted a LEED standard. So in the report, we fleshed that out a little bit. And the numbers that we found, because it is a fairly new system, and it's new to develop. It was new to developers 5 or 10 years ago. It's less new to our developers and applicants now, especially the ones who do the larger projects. And so the reports that we've studied have shown that as developers get more familiar with the systems, the cost can go down, because the LEED system is a rating system. So each developer can choose the points that closely match the goals for their project. So what I've been hearing anecdotally from developers and contractors and architects that I know and work with is that for the LEED certification, the baseline, there can be very little cost associated with that baseline if and only if there's a knowledge in advance when planning from the very start, before putting pen to paper, that there's a goal to meet those requirements. And then as you move up to the LEED Silver, LEED Gold, LEED Platinum, the LEED rating system has, as mentioned in the report, these different levels. And the different levels are based on how many points you achieve. Now, from my understanding of the system, the base LEED certification very often can be done without including a lot of bells and whistles and photovoltaic systems, other very expensive construction systems. When you get to LEED Silver, LEED Gold, and particularly LEED Platinum, which I believe LEED Platinum will require you to get the maximum number of points, then you're talking about additional construction cost, which then there will be likely further studies to see what the payback for those costs are. But because, and here's a little bit more of an answer to your question, because it's a fairly new field, the numbers for additional construction cost that were established earlier on when projects were, say, beginning to be planned and then LEED was thought of, or green building systems were thought of as an add-on, those projects had a much more significant cost than projects where there's an understanding that those goals need to be met from the very start. So the actual data that we're able to find is really all over the place. So what we drew from was the report that's mentioned. There's a report by Langdon Davis that is typically highlighted in a lot of the research, and that report goes point by point. If you want to get this LEED point, how much it will cost. And then we also included a cost table that the City of Los Angeles has prepared, because all of their built projects have been required to be at least LEED certified since 2003. So those are hard numbers that we were able to find. And in 2003, that was still a fairly new system, and so we see the actual construction costs associated with these systems going down as people get more familiar with it.
Okay.
What's the payback to, or the advantage to somebody actually doing this, though? Why would an architect or a developer want to be LEED Silver, Gold, or Platinum?
Well, what we're seeing and it varies for different building types. What we're seeing in articles in commercial real estate, for example, is that those building owners are using it as a marketing point and are sometimes able to charge more for their Class A office buildings. We're also seeing that certain tenants are looking for that kind of stamp. There has been at least one study that talks about increased productivity because of the indoor air quality and other qualities that are included and required for sustainable building. So there are measurable impacts on productivity. There are also measurable reductions in water use and energy use. That's one of the primary goals, I think, of sustainable building, is to use fewer resources. So the cost of maintaining these buildings in the operational cost is lower. So those are some of the few. Again, since it's a fairly new field, there isn't a lot of hard data and hard numbers on it.
And to add to what Stephanie just said, from our perspective, a few of the projects we're doing, I'll take the affordable housing project, Algemax, that 68 unit. We put photovoltaic on the rooftop there. It cost about $700,000 to do that. And then GWP refunds us $50,000 a year for the next 5 years. So you're looking at about $450,000. According to our consultants, we'll make that money up in savings and costs as it relates to electricity for the common areas. We'll make that up in about 9 years. And then from that point on, we're to the positive. So it's really not, it's short term, it's additional outlay of cash, but long term, economically, it makes sense. So even though the first part, people may want to be in a building, that may be one thing, but I think more it's economic driven. If it makes economic sense, people will do it, and if they don't, unfortunately, they'll try to get away from doing it.
And so long term, you actually save money,
Yes.
and it brings up the value of the property for resale or whatever, theoretically.
Yeah, whether it brings up the value of the property for resale or not, we don't know. But what we do know is it saves money in the long run.
Right. And as energy prices go up, which
Yeah.
they're going to have to, it gets a better investment, and it will increase the price of property.
And we talked a little earlier about the California State Building Code. The state of California has always been out in front of the rest of the nation in our energy requirements. Those will likely get more stringent to save more energy, and that positions developers in California to more easily meet the national standards that are out there.
Great. Thank you. Very
You're
detailed.
welcome.
Thanks, Rodney. That was a good explanation. Okay, thank you, Stephanie.
Madam Chair, would anyone else like to serve on that task force? Guess no takers.
Went over my head.
We heard that.
I think Rodney is our expert.
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
Yeah, Rodney.
He's our
Rodney,
lead person.
Rodney can do it for
person.
two. He can do it
Very
for
good.
two.
Lead person.
Okay.
Add the most to the
Yes,
task force.
yes,
Thank you.
Iris.
We don't want to detract.
please.
Item 6A2, Riverwalk Project Update.
I'll turn this over to Dave Ahern.
Oh,
Commissioner Sharkey, members of the commission. John Pearson is our project manager on Riverwalk. He's got a brief presentation for you, and then he'll be able to answer any questions that you might have. There's a couple of components to Riverwalk now, and we're moving this forward with design and construction documents here in the near future. So I think he's almost ready to go with this.
It'll take just a minute.
Have we solved the easement issue?
We have. We've
It's a major milestone.
last Thursday, we got a copy of the recorded easement from DreamWorks, signed by all parties and recorded at the county recorder's office. It was a lot of work for a lot of different folks. You folks are familiar with the time and effort that went into getting that to completion. So city attorney's office really did yeoman's job in
Dave is a lot calmer now.
Well, yeah, I'm familiar with time.
I
I guess
bet.
it's not.
Yeah.
So the
Off
effort
the
was just a
blood-
lot of negotiation. I mean, what? Just an easement.
There were a lot of negotiations revolving around the easement itself, and then the redesign of the DreamWorks project resulted in a redesign of where the easement area would need to be. And so everything then had to be resurveyed and negotiating a new path and who would pay for the modifications to those necessary new improvements that were off-site improvements for them. So sequencing of all these documents, and then the legal descriptions had to be redrawn, everything had to be resurveyed. And then there were multiple agencies involved, as you'll hear in every aspect of this. There's Caltrans, Army Corps of Engineers, City of LA, DreamWorks, Disney, private property owners, the City of Glendale. There's probably somebody else who I'm leaving out. I mean, we have everyone but the Flat Earth Society reviewing this thing. So it is mercifully come to a completion.
They were busy with
in terms
something
of
else.
that.
Actually,
Yes.
I think they've waited.
Anyways, here's John, and he'll give you really exciting news about what's going to be a great project.
President Sharkey, Commission members, staff, I am John Pearson, the city's project manager for the Riverwalk project. I want to just give you a brief update on the project. We actually have two Riverwalk projects right now, one of which you're very familiar with, and the other of which we have just started and you don't know much about yet. The Phase 1 of Riverwalk, all the colors on that screen are ending up being pretty much the same. The gold part of the project on the west side is Phase 1. It's about 6/10 of a mile that goes from Betty Davis Park down to the east end of the DreamWorks property at Flower Street. Phase 2 extends the project another 4/10 of a mile from Phase 1 around the bend in the river.
Phase 1.
No, that's Phase 1.
This is Phase 1. And this pointer works backward here. And that's Phase 2, the green part. Yeah, the colors are better there. So Phase 2 it goes around the bend in the river, across the Verdugo Wash and into North Atwater. The project is across from Griffith Park. The Phase 1 consultant for the project is Northeast Trees. They've been working on the project for some time. They're about 30% through design on the first phase of the project. The first phase is funded, and we'll start construction sometime this summer. The second and third phases, which we have just started, are a planning study to determine where primarily the bridges that will cross for Phase 2 and Phase 3 are going to be located, and do some concept design on those bridges. AECOM is the prime consultant for that project. It's funded by Caltrans. It is just a planning study. The construction part of Phases 2 and 3 are not funded yet. The Robert Group is the public outreach consultant for AECOM. There's a heavy outreach element of the Phase 2, Phase 3 study because it is a Caltrans planning grant that focuses on outreach opportunities. Cullen Bogart isn't a consultant, but he is the place grant coordinator for the city. You're familiar with the Safe and Healthy Streets initiative that focus on healthy activities and providing opportunities for healthy activities in Glendale. One of those is bicycling, and so we're heavily involved with Colin in looking at the bicycle network in the region and the city.
John, just a second on the picture. This would be a shot from the second phase. Would this be around where the second phase would be?
This is looking back from the second phase toward the first phase.
Right.
You can see DreamWorks back in the back, and this is the bend in the river that Phase 2 comes around.
So if someone were biking or walking, that's what they would see at some point once the project is complete?
Yes, if you're going to the north, coming from Atwater, thank you. My engineering degree is failing me here. I had it upside down. If you're coming on a bicycle to the north, getting ready to go around the bend in the river toward Burbank, that's what you would see, the DreamWorks in the distance. You've got the Fairmont extension on your right. You're just coming toward the power plant, the utility operations center.
Where the vehicle is parked, is that where the Riverwalk is going to be, or is that part of the new flyover?
That's part of the flyover. And actually, Riverwalk is right over the edge here. It's coming down off the edge. I'll show you a better picture a little later in the presentation. There's the Phase 1 project area. It starts at Betty Davis Park on the west. We have a small entry park at the west end. We have a small equestrian facility. This is an equestrian overlay area that's zoned for horse ownership. The apartments here have a stables, and a number of the residents in this area have horses stabled on their properties. This crosses over the I-5. We have another park here adjacent to the Disney ABC 7 site, past DreamWorks, and connecting to Flower Street at the east end. Initially, the project was supposed to connect to Flower Street through this existing road. The DreamWorks expansion is going to move the DreamWorks facility into this area, across that road, and so that's being vacated, and we'll now make a connection down here to Flower Street. Again, we'll talk about that in more detail later on.
And did you say it's going over the freeway or under the 5?
Under the 5 freeway, and we'll have a couple of environmental art projects, one of which may be a mural on the freeway abutment under here. This is certainly a design challenge, this portion of the route under the freeway.
It is also because it's typically a homeless encampment.
Yes.
So that's the design challenge.
One of what we think is the selling points for this project is that we're hoping to reduce the blight along the edge of the river, and when there's some public exposure there, and that's proved to be the case in other projects along the river. When that exposure happens, the gang activity and the homeless activity in that area have decreased, and we've had discussions with the police. We're going to be involving them in this, and we'll be very conscious of the security along here. So we will have some environmental art projects. We'll have a number of interpretive elements. We would like, this will be an educational and interpretive project as well as a recreational project. We're hoping has
the city of Burbank, or is that L.A. where Betty Davis Park is, have they started that portion of it, or is that where it's going to end?
There's a bikeway on the other side, the City of Los Angeles Bikeway, and that's being extended to the west toward Burbank and will eventually go all the way out to the headwaters of the Los Angeles River. Our project stops here and is actually partially in the City of Los Angeles.
We have the rendering.
Betty Davis.
That interest areas.
Next elevation. Let's get show them what.
John, if you wouldn't mind going back just for a second, because the question was, is Betty Davis Park in Glendale? It's not, but that entry area is part of Glendale.
Yes, the entry area is primarily Glendale. There is a little piece of Los Angeles right here, which just means that we're going to have to get permits from the City of Los Angeles as well as the county and City of Glendale.
I'm sorry, John, but the residential area is Glendale.
There's residential, small residential area that's Glendale. Very nice area.
Okay. The border between Glendale and Los Angeles runs right down Garden Street and right through our entry park. Okay. I think this is, just mentioning we have a number of park elements in the project. These are parks that Northeast Trees has done along the river, and we'll give you some idea of the character of some of the things that we'll be doing. This is our entry park, the area that we were talking about. Paula Avenue, Garden Street. We'll have a few parking spaces here. A primary element of our entry park will be this ramp that takes people up from the level of the intersection here to the level of the levee, which is where the multipurpose trail is. This will also serve as a gathering area for classes who are coming here, for the interpretive elements, for people, little groups who are going to be walking the trail. This is our equestrian facility, warm-up exercise areas. Again, this is the ramp coming up from the entry park area, and we have 2 rings, and we have a picnic area down here. I say a picnic area, a picnic table, and some landscaping. Okay. There will be a fence that separates the equestrian area from the adjacent apartments. This is our park area adjacent to the Disney ABC 7 facility. This is a passive recreation area. There will be some interpretive elements in here, primarily dealing with the landscaping, which will be native plants and will reflect on the native landscaping, native biology that used to be in the Narrows area. We have 3 small lawn areas for kids to play on, for picnicking, but there's a lot of native landscaping in here and a few picnic tables.
The only entrance to that would be from the pathway?
Yes. Eventually, we hope to have entries from the adjacent Disney and DreamWorks facilities, but they're highly security conscious, and at present, we are not able to do that.
John, I'm sorry, Commissioner Khan. Just if you can go back, how do the equestrian folks get to the ring? Is it the same path as the pedestrians, or is that separated?
The only place where the equestrians and the bicycles and the pedestrians use the same path is this ramp right here. There'll be signs at the top and bottom of the ramp saying that bicycles and pedestrians are to yield to the equestrians. Once the horses are up here, they move into the equestrian facility, and they don't use any of the rest of the trail.
And is the entry, so far you've showed us one to the west, is there other entry points as you go along, or is it just like all the way to the west and all the way to the east where you get in?
The only entry point into the equestrian area is down at the west end.
Not the equestrian area, the walkway. The walkway.
Are two entries to the project itself. One is at the west end in the ramp that I just showed you, and the other is from Flower Street to the connection that we'll look at.
There's
One on either end.
one on each end.
On either end, yes. Those are
But
the
it's
only
not
two
that far
entries.
of a distance anyway.
It's 6/10 of a mile, yeah.
Okay.
And this is the entry at Flower Street. This is the old connection to Flower Street. This is where DreamWorks has expansion plans. This is the new road that will be built to connect to Flower Street. We'll have a bench here, water fountain, some interpretive elements up here. And
Parking is street parking then on at the Flower Street entrance?
Yes.
Could you define the multi-purpose trail? What exactly how wide is it, and what will be on it?
12 feet wide, and bicycles and pedestrians.
What's the surface?
Asphalt.
Asphalt.
Yeah. We will have some DG pass in the park areas, but the multipurpose trail itself will be asphalt.
And will it be clearly marked which part is for bicycles and which part is for people?
No, the people in the bicycles share the path, just like the Los Angeles bikeway on the other side. We don't have enough space to do otherwise.
Okay.
And I think you'll find most of it is joggers and bicyclists anyway. Not really people just walking.
Oh, I would hope there would be people
yeah,
walking because of all the interpretive stuff that they can look at on the way.
We're hoping that there will be people from the neighborhood, classes, a number of different types of users for the trail. And certainly it's not a place that you'd want to race your bicycle. You have to be careful for pedestrians, but that's worked well on the Los Angeles Bikeway and a number of other places. It hasn't been a problem. If you have equestrians in the mix, then you have a real problem.
Okay, thank you.
One more question. When you say interpretive exhibits, that's pretty vague or general. What does that mean? Is it artwork that we're looking at, or is it? I mean,
no, we have two environmental art elements, which could be murals, sculpture. Those aren't defined yet, but the interpretive elements have to do with the biology of the Glendale Narrows area, what was there when it was a natural area before the channel was put there, wildlife, vegetation, the urban infrastructure of the area, the utility operations center, the channel itself, the two freeways, the power line. This is one of the heaviest concentrations of urban infrastructure in the city of Los Angeles. And it's really quite fascinating to look at the combination of natural and infrastructure elements that are coming together at this project. You've got Griffith Park, and that's what we're emphasizing, the natural character that we're trying to make this area compatible with in the midst of a very heavily impacted area of urban infrastructure. And the interpretation of that infrastructure is really, it could be quite interesting. There are a number of interesting things going on in the project area.
So it was a plaque that would have prose about what you just talked about, or I mean, what?
Interpretive signage.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, plaque sign, okay.
And
Prose.
also, this is the De Anza Trail comes through here. We would have an interpretive sign about the De Anza Trail. And we'd have, there's a fourth element that I'm not remembering right now. Oh, the hydrology of the Glendale Narrows, why it's called the Glendale Narrows, and why it looks the way that it does.
Fancy way of saying information sign.
Yeah, I was trying to understand.
Okay, phases 2 and 3. This shows phase 2 in green here. We have the bridge crossing here, which is the primary element of phase 2. Phase 3 would be a bridge across the river, the Los Angeles River, from the multipurpose trail into Griffith Park. And that's not shown on here because one of the purposes of the phase 2-3 study is locating that bridge. We're not sure right now where it would go. Possibly down near the Riverside Drive Bridge. There seem to be some possibilities down in this area, but the study is going to have to look at where the bridge should go, or if it's possible to do a bridge into Griffith Park. The problem, of course, is the freeways. You not only have to get across the river, you also have to get across the freeways to get into Griffith Park.
At what point will it actually connect to the existing bike trail that's along the 5 freeway and the river that's there now in the city
You mean
of
the
LA?
Los Angeles bikeway?
Yeah.
It will not connect. Well, phase 3 will connect to the bikeway. Yes, phase 1 and phase 2 will not. Phase 1 will make it easier to get to the bikeway from Glendale, as will phase 2.
And then phase 3 is how far down the bike trail?
We don't know. We don't know where it's going to go right now.
The question, phase 1 will be done at a certain time, phase 2 will be
Yeah.
done at a certain time. When will phase 3?
Right. When do we have an anticipation for phase 3?
We're doing the planning study right now for phases 2 and 3. We don't have funding to construct phases 2 and 3. But one of the purposes of the planning study is to locate these bridges, to do some conceptual design on the bridges, get a good cost estimate of what phase 2 and phase 3 are going to cost. And with that information and with some good graphics, then we can start talking to people about money for building these projects, start going after grants.
So it probably would be safe to say probably not in the next 3 years by the time we look for money and procure the money and do the planning. So it could be 3 to 5 years down the line. But potentially the bridge project can happen maybe even before phase 2 if there's money for a bridge.
And there's, of course, a lot of interest in the Phase 3 project. You have a heavy residential area east and north of San Fernando Road, and there's no way to get to Griffith Park, which is right across the river from them, without going down to Riverside Drive Bridge or the Los Feliz Bridge, which is a 3.5-mile span. So a lot of people are interested in a bridge that would get a pedestrian, a bicyclist, possibly an equestrian, into Griffith Park without having to cross those heavily trafficked bridges.
Well, and if you get to the soccer complex, there's that road that goes along the soccer complex that would take you into Griffith Park that way, too.
Yes, and that's one possibility, coming over to the soccer complex and taking the road down to the bridge that goes across to the zoo. But again, there's traffic on that bridge, and the bicyclist, a good bicyclist can handle that. We're not sure how we're going to get pedestrians across there right now. That's one of the things ECOM will look at in this study. And that certainly is one of the things, possibilities that we'll be looking at. This shows the Phase 2 portion of Riverwalk looking back toward the east from the beginning of Phase 2, the western end of Phase 2. And as you can see, it's being built into the Fairmont extension. This is the extension over here, and the Fairmont Bridge is down at this end. You can see the power plant here. You can see that the river has gone from trapezoidal, from sloping sides on both sides, to a vertical side along the Fairmont extension. This goes down to this point and stops. It's already been built and paid for us, but we have to take it from here, from that point, down across the Verdugo Wash and into North Atwater. And in North Atwater, eventually there will be a trail coming up that now goes to the Chevy Chase area that will connect into North Atwater. Also, North Atwater is a focal point of the Los Angeles River Revitalization Project. It's one of the 5 opportunity areas that they have focused on for future projects. It's a potential revitalization project for the city called River Glen that is intended to show the possibilities of creating an industrial area that's focused on the river instead of turning its back on the river. There's also a project area that begins with the Verdugo Wash and goes to the south, where they're investigating the possibility of actually taking the concrete out of the river and making a natural part of the river there. And if that's done, it will be a major opportunity to show what can be done in the way of creating a greenway through the city of Los Angeles using the river corridor, which is the object of all of these projects that are going on along the river right now. This is down at the end of the portion of Riverwalk that's been built into the Fairway Extension project. We've separated from the extension. This is the bridge for the extension, and just to the left is the end of the Riverwalk path. This is the I-134, and the next slide will show just to the right of this the I-134 crossing over the river. And this is the area where we're talking about before, where this possibility of considering the Phase 3 bridge in this area. And if you did put the Phase 3 bridge into the soccer fields, you would have to come under here and take the bridge across into Griffith Park. And this, of course, when we start looking at things like that, we've got a lot of interaction with Caltrans that's going to involve. This is the Verdugo Wash looking to the west toward Griffith Park. This is the 134. There's the Fairmont Extension. This is a reclaimed water line that crosses the Verdugo Wash, the north slope of the wash and the south slope of the wash over here. This is what is growing in the wash right now. The city of Los Angeles is looking at the possibility, when they do the River Glen project, of proposing a wetland area here, and that's been studied by a number of people. I don't know if that's really feasible, but it's an interesting idea. And it's interesting to note how much vegetation there is growing in this area right now. This is the west end of the Phase 2 project. This is the new DreamWorks building, the expansion project. You can see what the river looks like in the Phase 1 area down here. It's concrete bottom to this point, and past that point, it's a soft bottom portion of the river, one of the rare soft bottom portions of the Los Angeles River. And you can see all the vegetation in there. You can see that it's trapezoidal on both sides, and when it comes down to about this point here, it's transitioning to a vertical channel over here, or a vertical side on the channel. And that's the section of the river again in the Phase 2 area, the vertical channel and the trapezoidal portion of the channel. There's the Fairmont Extension, the landscaped area right here. There's the multipurpose trail. We started the Phase 2, Phase 3 project in January. As I said, this is heavily involved with outreach. We've done a number of focus group and stakeholder group meetings. We're gathering data. We're analyzing the site. We had a community workshop on the 18th of February, had about 40 people in attendance. Really excellent workshop. We had some excellent breakout discussions at this workshop. They'll take the data that they're gathering now, the input from the workshop, In the second step of the planning process, again, more focus group meetings, but this will focus on developing concept alternatives for the bridge crossings and for what the bridges might look like. We'll then have another community meeting to get input on these alternatives. And with this information and the alternatives themselves, we'll do a final plan and cost estimates for a final plan. And again, this gives us a lot of information and a lot of colorful graphics to take to people who have money to do these sorts of things. So we'll start then the grant application process. It'll be in Mark's capable hands.
Thanks, John. We better move along here. We've got some other people coming up, so.
Okay, that gives you an idea of what we're doing, and if there are any questions, I'll answer them now, or you can give me a call anytime, and I'd be happy to.
We've got quite a few reports coming up.
Yeah. One quick question, and you might have already said it. When is the Phase 1 completed?
July, probably, of 2011.
Yeah.
We only have a half hour.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Item 6A3, under reports for information only, Adult Recreation Center project update.
Once again, this is Dave Ahern's area, but I guess Hagop is going to be doing the PowerPoint. A quick PowerPoint.
Singing some music.
Your coworker took all your time.
I know.
It's my fault I asked too many questions.
It's true.
Good afternoon. I'm Hagop Kasabian, project manager with the CIP section, project manager for the ARC project. I've got about 12 to 14 slides, I think, so I'll be pretty quick. It's more or less an update of where we are today with the project. First of all, we are still within budget, and we are ahead of schedule. So I'd like to make that clear.
How far out of schedule are you?
How far ahead of schedule?
Oh, ahead of schedule.
Ahead of schedule. By a few days. Although rain has affected us a little bit, we have been able to work, do a lot of work on the interior as far as painting, staining, putting up T-bar ceilings, bathroom fixtures, and so on and so forth.
Any leaks?
No leaks. And I apologize. Good afternoon, President Sharkey and
That's
Commission
okay.
members.
You're moving along. This is good.
So here we are. Here's a shot. This was taken last week of looking northeast to the building. As you can tell, I mean, a lot of people who drive from the outside, they look at the building and they think it's complete. There's a lot of detail that still needs to go in there. The trellis, the southeast trellis, more or less is about 70% complete, I would say. This is covered. This is the light stone that goes on there. We have formed, and we'll start plastering this portion right here. The precast caps are in. The seat walls, you can see them in the background, and I'll have closer shots of the building. All the windows are in. The building is secure at night. The doors get locked. We have keys, so no one can access the building after hours. Everything is locked. Here's a shot of the lit stone that's been going up, and it's more or less complete. This is a shot of the multi-purpose room and the eastern entrance to the building, and the northeast trellis. More work that was being done on the windows, the stone. These are, I would say, probably about a month to 5 weeks old, these pictures. The seat walls underneath the trellis, as I showed you in the first slide. And there's the stonework that's all covered. The benches, all that area back here. And back here, this is going to be landscaped. There'll be some paths to lead back into, these are benches. These are benches as well. This will be all concrete with tables and seating underneath. The sidewalks around the perimeter of the building have been placed and have been poured. 80% of the sidewalks are in. We have more or less poured curb and gutter for the drive aisle. We have our light standards, the posts for the light fixtures. This area, which is the drive aisle from the library end, 2 lanes It's been compacted. We were actually going to pour asphalt this week. Again, weather didn't permit, so hopefully, I don't think we're going to be able to do this next week either, so probably it'll be the week after, depending on the rain. A shot of the interior rotunda. You might have seen this, but here's a newer look. The stain just started last week on the rotunda, and sorry, because of the light, the camera didn't really capture this well. There's another image of the main multi-purpose room with the tongue and groove ceiling, the glue lamp beams, and the trusses, and they have been stained. All these all the ductwork, the metal pipes, the sprinkler pipes, everything has been painted black. There's a lot of dust inside the building because we keep sweeping. That's why you see some of these dust particles, but that's what the ceiling looks like, and this is what the ceiling is going to look like in the rotunda as well. So there's two tones of the stain. This is the lighter color on the tongue and groove. The truss has the darker color. Everything else pretty much painted black, as well as the brackets have been painted black. Painting has started inside the building. The doors are being hung as well. They started hanging the doors today. The door frames have been painted. All the drywall work is complete. This is the small multi-purpose room with the pockets where the coffered ceiling would be going. As you can see, a lot of ductwork, a lot of pipe work. That's up above in the ceiling. All the light fixtures are on site, and they've started to install the light fixtures as well. T-bar ceiling is all in. The only reason we aren't putting in are tiles because we want to get all the inspections completed for the electrical, HVAC, and everything else, including fire, before we start hanging any of those ceilings. And it's a good idea. Since it's raining, we can keep testing and seeing how the building is holding up. If we put any of those T-bar ceilings, we might be hiding some of the water leaks, if we encounter any, which we haven't to date. And I don't anticipate to really get into that. This is one sample that was put together for us to approve of the coffered ceiling. This is the lounge, and this ceiling back here, all these pockets will have this exact same look. This lounge has 4 sections. 2 of them right there, and two further back going in that direction. But that's basically the look we'll be achieving. The bathroom tiles are in, floor, wall tiles, mirrors will go in, sinks are in, bathroom fixtures are in, partitions are in. We are in the process of installing all the accessories. Kitchen is done as well. I don't have pictures of the kitchen because it's been quite dark in the kitchen, but all the tile work in the kitchen is complete, saying all about 95% of it. We still have some areas around the walk-in freezer and the refrigerator. Casework, finished casework work has started. This is the reception area desk. They've laid it out. They have all the brackets. They have equipment on site, and we'll be installing it within the next couple of weeks. Lockers and the exercise area room were installed. They still have some final touch-up work to be done on them. As you can see, we have water fountains, 3 water fountains inside the building. Those have been installed. Gates are at the site. This picture was taken today of the gate being installed at the kitchen area leading into the upper courtyard. And finally, here's a shot of the fireplace in work in progress. You've got the seat walls, bench seating right here. That's the hearth. We've got another 5 courses going up. You can tell some of the precast pieces are going in. This entire gray block, CMU block face, will be covered with the stone veneer. And again, it's hard to see, but there's the opening right there. And when you see the forms that we have right around here is the 3 pattern concrete finish in our upper courtyard, which includes colored concrete, stamped concrete, and some broom finished concrete. I believe that's all I have for today.
Can we hold our questions until everybody gets... Oh, great. Okay. Thanks, Hagov.
Sure.
It's magnificent.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, who's next, Iris?
6A4A, under monthly activity reports, Park Services.
And this is Gary's item, but I think Coco's going to come up and talk about the cell antennas. As you may or may not know, we have approximately 6 cell antennas that we have placed, or companies have placed in our open space, and we derive direct income from those. And so Coco will give you an update on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chapchan. Good afternoon, President Sharkey, members of the Commission. My name is Coco Panosian. I work for the Park Services Administrative Analyst. I do have a PowerPoint if you'd like. Go through it real quickly. I figured it's a lot easier to show some of the numbers for our viewing audience rather than me just talking with my monotone. We have actually, the number is currently up to 8 in our facilities. This is park and open space facilities. Whatever I put down as Fern Lane, just to clarify, this is the freeway site A site, which is just north of the sports complex on the right, to the right of the 2 freeway. It is an open space area. We actually have 3 cell towers there, the 3 older ones. That's AT&T, which is listed at number 1, T-Mobile, that's listed at number 6, as well as STC1, listed at number 5. Those 3 are in that same location. We also have Metro PCS at Palanconi, Nextel and Sprint both have towers at Stengel Field. T-Mobile also has a tower at Shoal Ball Fields, and Verizon Wireless has one at Babe Herman. To give you an aerial shot, this is where 3 of them are near the Verdugo Park area. As you can see down to the south, we have Stengel Field right about here, and then Sprint and Nextel towers are right next to them. I'm glad I went with blue. It actually is visible. Babe Herman Park, we have Verizon Wireless located to this corner. This is the location just north of the sports complex. As you can see, the sports complex here, an old aerial view of that. I know it looks a lot greener now because this is still the turf. It's not the artificial fields. This is the 2 freeway, and this is the entrance to the freeway site A, which encompasses about this 6-acre area approximately. And we have AT&T, STC1, T-Mobile, and STC1 located at this location. Oh, skip one. This is Metro PCS at Palanconi Park, the northwest end of the park. And lastly, we have the T-Mobile site at Shoal Ball Fields. This is where the equipment is located inside one of the buildings, and they have their antennas along the walkway towards the very, the southeast end of the park. These cell towers, as Mr. Chapchan mentions, have been a great source of revenue, not just for our park system. It's actually used in a lot of municipalities across the state. They generate on average, about $2,500. They vary in range of the revenue they generate from $1,250, which is one of the older ones, AT&T, to about $3,000 a month, which is the latest one we recently got reapproved by council. The reason why they are that way, back in '97 when they first initiated these contracts, the market value for the cell tower lease was not as great as it is now. Now there's a higher demand. That's why with the demand we have looked at increasing our fees for the facilities. And the revenues we generate from these facilities actually help offset a lot of the maintenance costs that we have. We have an enterprise account as well for park services. Partially, we share some of the revenue coming in with, I believe it is the sport enterprise account. A couple of cell towers get deposited their funds there, and the rest of them go into the park enterprise, which help us pay for a couple of gardeners. And as Mr. Chapchan mentioned, we're looking at utilizing that resource a lot more by placing or converting some of our staff to that account, that way lifting some of the impact on the general fund. We have been working with the City Attorney's Office extensively the last couple of years, looking at standardizing the language in these agreements and the terms, given that they had been initiated in different years. Some of the language in the old agreements are significantly different than the ones we have now. So what we had done is, working with the City Attorney's Office, we revised the agreements, and any new cell tower company that wants to place their equipment in our properties will have to abide by the new agreement, and as well as anything that expires, we will be renegotiating with them to make sure they abide by the new terms, new language of their contract. Some of the notable changes are we have increased our monthly fee to $3,000. That is going to be the base rate. In the previous contracts, there was no mention of any co-location and the funds that they bring. We've added a clause in there that identifies if you will co-locate any additional towers or any additional carriers on your existing facility, you'll be additional $500. This doesn't include any additional space, which will get us into negotiating further. We've included a termination clause in there, but 6 days for termination for any cause, basically. And if the carrier terminates, they have to pay us a severance fee for 4 months for the termination, following through the same timeline process. And we also placed a relocation clause in the contract, just in case there is a need for us to ask them to relocate their equipment for our use. If there's a park that needs to be expanded, like Freeway Site A, if there is ever a need to extend the roadway, there is a clause in the contract now that they will relocate their equipment and their tower if necessary at their sole cost. Of course, they do have the option to cancel the contract at that time, but most of the new ones we are building, we're planning ahead and making sure they are further away from the roadway or whatever may be necessary for future construction of the park. And the three other agreements, AT&T, T-Mobile, and STC1, they actually expired in 2007. We've been, each one of them has a clause that says they can forward on after the 10 years for 2 additional 5-year periods with mutual consent of both parties. Well, we took that to them and said, look, we do not mutually consent to extending these, and we want to start the renegotiation on the new language. It was time-consuming. I'm proud to say we have recently, the next slide, one of them has been completed and council voted on it the 16th of February as a new agreement. They are going to be moving from the $1,700 to the $3,000 range. Plus, they will have the co-location as well, $500 for, that's STC1. And overall, the other two carriers as well are very close to be completing our negotiations. There's only a couple of items left in the negotiation. We do anticipate that we'll bring those back to council for requesting that they become new ordinances at the increased rate. This is a general overview of all of our sites. I know the font is small. I wanted to be able to capture it on one slide. Current monthly rate, as you can see, are listed in the very first column. The ones I've highlighted in yellow, those are the ones that have expired and we are currently renegotiating. AT&T, it did not have a CPI clause in that contract, and so AT&T always is paid $1,250 a month. More like it was a 5-year, $75,000 deal. But without the CPI increase clause, they've always maintained a $1,250 rate. Whereas, as you can see, some of the others, that they had start at a low end, but with the CPI, they do fluctuate and vary in their monthly revenue. And overall, as you can see on the site, currently a monthly about currently $17,880, and projected after these fall into play, going up to $3,000. This one already has, and it will start March 16th paying that rate. They will go up to $22,000. Thus, the new projected annual will be about $266,000 in revenue. And there is one additional one. I know I've lifted it, I placed it in the report, not on the slides. Verizon Wireless, we are very close with finalizing negotiation on that. They're basically in execution stage of the contract from Verizon's end. Once they submit to that, there will be an additional tower at the Fern Lane location, the freeway site A, and that's going to be generating about $36,000 additional revenue per year. I mean, along the term of the contract, we're looking at about $800,000 because they have the 4% increase clause included in that contract. It's a great source of revenue, and we've used it for quite well. We've done well with it, and we look forward to increasing that revenue source.
Coco, just a clarification, because that 4% is not a CPI. It's an
I'm sorry, correct, yes.
So it's in there.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Chapman. It is. In the previous years, because of the CPI included in there, the rates could vary anywhere from 2% to 4.5% or whatnot. We decided it's a lot easier to just put a percentage in there and say, look, this is at 4%. No longer we're going to the CPI and trying to figure out who has the numbers correct. Last year, I believe we even had a negative CPI, so that could really fluctuate negatively. This way, every year, 4% increase per site.
If you wonder why your mobile phones are going up,
well, you know,
just look at the slide.
I had to send Coco back to the table a couple of times. I told him no.
I mean, from a negotiating standpoint, they really can't say much, right? I mean, it's not as if they say, okay, we're going to pick up and go someplace else.
That's a very good question. They do have that option, but I guess that plays in our favor because they are providing service to their clients in the area, and they do want to improve service their client. However, there always is that clause. If we can, there's hard point on a couple of items. If they can't come to negotiation, of course, they have the option of leaving. Although that has played in our favor thus far, being able to increase the rent because they need that location. And we also need the revenue being generated, as well as we want to provide, better communication for the residents in the area. So it's a win-win situation.
We weren't sure at one point, so we kind of pushed the envelope to see what would happen, see if they would walk away, and they didn't.
Because, see, they can raise prices, right? It's not as if it's...
Well,
I mean, not that easily, but they can... it's not as if they're going to get stuck with that.
No, but the thing is...
Figure out how to get their profit.
The thing is, though, too, is that they could also locate out of the park's property. So, I mean, it's not just that's the only location they could be. The only thing is as you guys probably know, it's fairly controversial in terms of being where you're located at and where you're not.
Yeah.
So if you're already there, you probably want to stay there.
It is somewhat of a controversial. So, however, to answer the question is, the rate at 3,000, there are a lot of other agencies that have the rate at 3,000, even 3,500. Santa Monica being one of them. It's prime property, and we want to make sure we compete with prime property.
I think the other thing that may help them is the co-location, because it's only another $500 to co-locate, so that you can co-locate 2 or 3 companies on the same pole. So that may help.
I always heard that was kind of tough, because if in order to service one company over the other, if you're on a pole in a certain location, they have to close down the other. That whole co-location thing it's easier if it's the same company as opposed to other companies. Is that true or false?
I honestly cannot answer that question in terms of what their equipment necessary to be able to do the upgrades or the maintenance. However, I do know that they have real property managers that are taking over these sites.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily, for example, when I mentioned Verizon at Bay Berman, Verizon Wireless is the carrier, but our contract is with American Tower, who manages it. So American Tower will be the sole, I guess, not necessarily carrier, but
Manager.
the manager that will be dealing with anything maintenance-wise necessary, or even with the contract, we negotiate through them. They are our...
So they're paying us, but they will make their money up by charging Verizon and those others.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Coco.
Thank you.
You're going to be around for a minute in case
Absolutely.
somebody has a question. Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
6A4B, Recreation and Community Services.
Commissioner Sharkey and the members of the commission, I guess for the sake of time, I'll just briefly ask if you've had a chance to review the report and if you have any questions. Really, this past month our highlighted program was Winter Wonderland, and as Commissioner Rontfogel already mentioned, nice event, great weather that day, thankfully. Frosty the Snowman on hand, all the tons of snow and the slides, and lots of fun for the kids. So, but other than that, most of the information in the monthly activity report, our customer service numbers or civic auditorium numbers, are rather status quo. We did have one softball tournament we had to cancel this month due to inclement weather, but they are going to be finding a makeup date at a later time to be able to offer that tournament. So.
Okay. Was Gary the one in the Frosty the Snowman
No,
costume?
Gary was not. We like to torture Gary, but not in that way. We spare him from that assignment.
Okay, thanks, Brittany.
Been nice to Gary lately.
Yeah.
6A4C, CIP projects.
Again.
I think we've given you all the updates you need, unless there's something else.
Okay.
Item 7 is written communications. I don't believe we have any.
Don't have any. And no Gary.
Skip Gary.
Just one thing that I wanted to say was I wanted to thank all the people that were involved with the Duke Magian cleanup, Public Works, Public Service, their large equipment that was out there that was moving all the large stuff, my staff, Park Services staff who was using the Bobcat on a daily basis, pushing the mud, pushing the rock around, getting rid of it, doing the sandbagging. But the park came out very well. The park did really well. Everything that was put in place was supposed to work the way it did, and it did work that way. So I just want to thank everybody who was up there, and even the guys who weren't up there, they were picking up for the guys who were. So everybody lent a hand somewhere along the line, and it worked out really quite well. So I was happy with that.
Okay, thank you. So did anybody have questions of Hagab?
For the adult recreation?
Yeah.
The adult recreation center, when I don't know if you all went on the tour, but when I went on the tour, it is going to be absolutely fabulous.
What's the opening date?
Depending on the rain, I guess, huh?
Right. No, it's right on schedule.
Yeah, depending on the rain, at the moment we don't really have a set date. We are shooting for summer, if I can keep it general.
But you told us you're ahead of schedule, right?
We're ahead of schedule.
June 21st.
It's just we don't have a schedule.
No, the schedule calls for completion in August for Phase 1, and for Phase 2 another 5 weeks from that. But we are definitely ahead of that schedule. So that was it was fall of 2010 for the completion based on the schedule. But right now it's more of the summer, and it could be beginning of the summer.
No. It's hard
I'm
to
sorry,
pin
I don't
down,
have a
isn't
more
it?
accurate date for you.
That's okay. Yeah.
And I think, Hagel, just Phase 2, can you just briefly explain Phase 2 for us?
What we have at the moment, Phase 1 is what we're working on with the new building and everything that's around the new building. Phase 2 are the bungalows that we have for our staff and the existing meals building, which will be demolished, and the bungalows will be given back. That's our Phase 2. So Phase 2 involves the demolition of the existing meals building, regrading that entire area, which is about an acre and a quarter, and tying it into Phase 1.
And greening it.
And greening it, yes.
One of the questions I had for you was, first of all, congratulations to everybody involved for a major city project to be within budget and ahead of schedule. Considering our last few major city projects, that's really saying something.
Not the parks projects.
No, I understand. Of course not. The question I had, and I brought this up, you were kind enough to tour me around, and you're right, Steve. It's great to get the tour, and it was kind of neat just to see how the progress is coming along. One of the questions that I had brought up, and I'm not sure if how it would be addressed, or even if it could be, was as it relates to the fencing and as it relates to the security of the park area, and as it relates to where the children's play area was. Because I was looking at it, and we had talked a little bit about, we get people that kind of hang out at the park. You get some of the homeless people, for instance, especially during the cold weather shelter months, coming there and kind of hanging out, and just making sure that it was more secured and fencing and how it would relate to that. Is there opportunity to do that? Is that already been addressed? Is that out of the budget? I mean, what's the latest with that?
I'll give you my 2 cents. We definitely have an opportunity to develop Central Park. We do have a conceptual plan that was prepared by our landscape architect. We might develop that further, and I think within those plans we can start thinking of the children's play area and how we fence it, how we protect the kids. First of all, from the street, and also from everybody else that is using the park. In addition, the perimeter fence will definitely be taken out to open up the park to everyone else. Now, the fence comes out, it doesn't mean the park is going to be is not going to be secured, but we can definitely look into planting trees strategically, or shrubbery, or any sort of fencing elements other than concrete or metal to provide that with different paths and different landscaping. That's the plan. Now.
Yeah, and it's important to note that Central Park didn't have a play area, children's play area. Mm-hmm. So if and when that is built in there, like many of the mini parks that we've built, there are some barriers that we can put up that aren't high barriers, but keep the children away from the street. And my assumption is, if and when we do that, the tot lot wouldn't be near the street; it would be further up, closer to the library area. But, yeah, all that will be flushed out.
And even though we don't have the we haven't put in a CCTV system, my understanding is the building is wired for it already, correct?
We have all the conduits inside in the building, so it is ready. The wires, everything is basically, we have the pull strings, but they're not wired. We don't have the actual cameras, and it is ready. So if we do plan and we do have the money to bring in CCTV, we have all the infrastructure inside the building. It's just a matter of getting the equipment there.
Separate from that, I am meeting with IS, and we are looking at cameras for a number of the parks, and this will be one of the parks that we do look at as well.
And if we are ahead of budget, then we'll be able to use some of that money for things like this? Mm-hmm. Good.
Yes.
Commissioner or President Sharkey, if I might add, also at this particular park location, we are fortunate enough to also have security guards. We have a contract. Our department and the library fund a contract for security guards at this particular location as well, so that's an added level of security.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
And again, I'd like to extend an invitation at any time you'd like to come back and visit the site, visit the building. It has tremendously changed since last time you were there. I think you were there about 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I would say on a weekly basis, the building kind of changes. So if you are available, I can work with Iris to schedule some time for you to come back and visit.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
To Jess.
Okay. Any questions from the COCO? Thank you, Jess, for being here. So, Jess Duran, this is what, your second, actually your second official meeting.
I was kind of worried he was just going to sit here and do nothing, but we'll give him
No,
more.
we'll
to-
get, you know, we have to. Yes, yes. Oh, okay.
It's a lot.
All right, so we are, one more.
Just President Sharkey, members of the commission, when you're ready, I just have one brief announcement for you before we close.
We're ready.
Today.
But yeah, just before
Go
you
ahead.
you did get a nice, I think, contract that was a little bit I don't know quite the word since California's going to let loose some people from the jails, you got some sort of grant, and there was a little bit of at least the paper had a little bit of dust up of the whether that's good or bad.
We were going to give you that update this month, but because of the heavy agenda, but I will let Jess give you a brief background on
All right.
parolee program.
Now you're glad you came, aren't you?
You have 4 minutes.
Chair Sharkey,
3.5. Dave has a...
Go.
Chair Sharkey, Commissioner Bennett, our department did receive a $170,000 grant from the
Wow.
California Department of Corrections to provide specialized employment training services for early released parolees. We've already begun to serve them. I think we have 10 in a training program, enrolled in training programs already, and about 25 currently being case managed or counseled at our job center. It's 2 placed in jobs? Okay. 2 placed in jobs. Thanks, George.
That's wonderful. Wonderful.
President Sharkey, March 14th is the Downtown Dash. It's the Downtown Merchants' 3rd annual 5K run here in Glendale. It starts at 8 a.m. If the commissioners want to participate, you can sign up to run, or you can join staff from the department. We host the water station right out here in front of City Hall and staff to some of the street closures and all of that. So it's a very fun event. It raises money for the stroke prevention program and Healthy Kids, 2 Glendale nonprofit agencies. As part of the Dash this year, our department has challenged the redevelopment agency to a race in this. Our champion is Mark A. Sturdivant.
Right.
He is representing the kind, loving people of Community Services and Parks. The redevelopment,
Rest of them.
the redevelopment agency, the unwashed heathens of
Better
redevelopment
known as that nefarious organization across
are
the...
represented by Annette the Diva Vartanian. She is 27 and a great athlete. Mark is a little different than that.
He's 29.
He's got experience on her.
He's a great athlete.
Mark has told many folks that age and ability are no match for experience and treachery. So we expect to have a lot of fun with it and hope you'll come out and join us. And if you'd like, join us at the water station out here. We're handing out water and Gatorade, and it's a fun time. And then everyone stops at Damon's afterwards for brunch in the downtown.
What time is it at, Dave?
The run actually starts at 8, and it's done by about 9:30. And there's a bicycle component afterwards the first time, and Mark's been instrumental in seeing that part got put into the program. So the event's expanding. We expect to have about 2,000 participants this year. Last year we had 1,200, so it's the first year we had 600. So it's a growing community event and very fun and benefits some worthy nonprofit agencies.
I'll be out of state, or I'd be there.
I was there
But
last
I
year.
will be there.
I was
This
there
is my
last
3rd year.
And,
Excellent.
I was at the water station last year, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And briefly, next Thursday, March 11, is the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast, starting at 6:30, I believe. Social hour is at 6 o'clock? If anybody can be social at 6 o'clock, I don't know. Or sociable. And if people want tickets, they can contact the city clerk's office.
Where's it at this year?
It is
It's at
back
the Civic Auditorium, back at the Civic Auditorium for the 2nd year.
L.A. Dodgers Say.
That's right,
What is
Ron
his first-
Say.
Ron Say, yeah.
The former Los Angeles Dodgers
Speaker.
third baseman, I believe.
Third baseman.
Is the speaker.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
All right.
Second.
We are adjourned.